Last year, Toyota announced the new Tacoma, the new Land Cruiser, and even the Lexus GX 550. So are we going to find out something about the 4Runner this year? I think so. I think it's going to be a 2025 model, and I think we're going to be hearing some news from Toyota maybe even fairly soon. So I wanted to make this video just to compile everything that's out there online right now about the upcoming generation of the 4Runner. And honestly, there's not much. I mean, Toyota hasn't officially announced anything. They haven't said anything about the 6th generation 4Runner as far as I know. So let's be honest, this is mostly speculation. And there's a lot of speculation going on out there right now. First of all, I spent a little bit of time to geek out and make my own renderings of what I think the 4Runner might end up looking like. I didn't want to reuse the crap that everybody's been using and stealing from each other online. That's another thing that's been going on here. There's a lot of parroting and a lot of people just copying what other people have said, whether it's right or wrong, and then you can kind of see who's doing the research and who's just, repeating what they've already heard. So these are the renders that I made. They're not great. Let's take a little moment of silence for my hack job Photoshop skills, but this is what I came up with. So let's dig in here. For starters, I think it's a safe bet to say that the front end is going to be very similar to the 4th generation Toyota Tacoma, which I think is a good thing because that's a great looking truck as far as I'm concerned. The 4Runner has always looked somewhat similar to the Tacoma, not dead on exact, but they always shared very similar styling cues, and I think that's probably going to continue on for this year. So what I ended up doing in these renderings is I started with the body of the new Land Cruiser, and I feel like the Tacoma, the Land Cruiser, the GX, the 4Runner, they're all going to be on this same platform, and chances are these SUVs are probably going to be the same shape. It's going to be mostly the same body with some different adjustments here and there. So what do you get when you combine the Land Cruiser body with the front end from the Tacoma? Well, this. This is what I came up with. And I think if Toyota took sort of like the easy way out here and just stuck a Tacoma front end on the Land Cruiser, I don't think it would be the end of the world. I think it looks pretty good. And I think the direction that Toyota is heading, at least with their trucks, is they want to simplify their designs and make them maybe a little bit cheaper, a little bit easier to mass produce. And that's what they did with the Sequoia and the Tundra. Let's be honest, the front ends are, I think, identical. The interiors are identical. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they do that with the smaller size trucks like the Tacoma and the 4Runner. Now in this shot, you'll see painted cladding, and I think this could go either way. I think historically, Toyota has offered black plastic cladding on some of the lower end models in earlier years of the generation, like say the 4th gen 4Runner. And then maybe on higher trims, it'll come painted to color match the rest of the body. Total guess, but I think there's a real possibility for either option. Onto the rear shot here, and I took kind of a wild guess. I went against what a lot of the other renderings are showing online right now. I'm saying that maybe it's going to be similar to a mini Sequoia on the rear end. And so I took, again, the Land Cruiser, but similar to Sequoia rear taillights. I think this is probably an unpopular opinion. Honestly, I think it's probably not even right, but I just wanted to do something different than what everybody is sharing out there. It sounds like the Sequoia rear end design is kind of polarizing. There's a lot of people, I'm surprised, that really hate it. They think it looks like a Highlander or something. I like it. I think it looks really good, but to each their own, I suppose. What do you think, guys? Are we going to have black plastic trim all over these things, or is it going to be color matched? Let me know in the comments below what you think is going to happen there. I definitely do need to change that rear wheel and fix that. That looks a little bit ridiculous. The angle's wrong. Listen, I don't have enough time to act like Chip Foose here and get every detail perfect on these renderings. I'm not a design guy. I just wanted to get something up here. Onto the side shot, and in this one, I chose to go with the black trim just to see what it would look like. And I think it's more likely to look like this. I think the Tacoma, especially the TRD Pro Tacoma, I believe has black fender flares and stuff. But again, you see the really bold shaped fender flares, which I've got the front end of the Tacoma grafted onto the Land Cruiser in this case once again. And it's kind of surprising, the shape of the fender matches almost identically from the Land Cruiser to the Tacoma. So are we going to see that on the 4Runner? I'd say that's a pretty safe bet. And I chose the more Sequoia style taillights on the side view shot as well. The other reason I have for that is that the Lexus GX 550 has more of a light bar, like a skinnier light bar style on the rear end. The Land Cruiser obviously has big kind of block taillights, but so really I think it could go either way. If you think those renderings are cool looking, make sure you hit the like button for me because I basically spent all morning working on them and I had so many other things I should have been doing. So let's talk about some predictions here. And first and foremost, will the new 6th Gen 4Runner be coming out as a 2025 model? And I think it will be, because Toyota went so hard on the other 3 trucks last year and then didn't say a word about the 4Runner. So unless they're going to just forget about the 4Runner and cancel it altogether, which I think is very unlikely, I'm willing to bet that they're going to be sharing some news about it this year, and it's going to be released next year. The guys at the Fastlane Truck seem to agree with me on that too. They seem to think that 2025 will be the model year because it's 1 year after the new Tacoma. And they said that historically, every time there's a new Tacoma, 1 year later, the new 4Runner comes out. And that's awesome, except for the fact that it's complete misinformation. They don't know what the heck they're talking about. The 4th Gen 4Runner did not come out 1 year after the 2nd generation Tacoma. It was the other way around. The 2nd Gen Tacoma came out in 2005. That was 2 years after the 4th Gen 4Runner came out in 2003. Same thing with the outgoing trucks. The 5th generation 4Runner started in 2010, and the 3rd generation Tacoma came 6 years after that. So I don't know where they're getting this whole 1 year later the new 4Runner comes out thing, but it's wrong. Next question is, will this 4Runner be made in Japan? Because every single 4Runner up until this point has all been manufactured in Japan. Toyota has been very strict about that, and I've talked about that in other videos where I compared my 4Runner with my Tacoma. Now there's some rumors out there going around right now that claim this new 4Runner is going to be built in Mexico in the same factory as the Tacoma, but as far as I've seen, and comment below if you've seen any actual evidence, Toyota has never said that. There's no reason to believe that. If anything, the Tacoma production in Mexico is pretty much maxed out. They don't have any more capability to build more vehicles. I know that Untamed Motors guy seems pretty certain that it's going to be built in Mexico, but he also said that the 5th Gen 4Runner started in 2017. So will the new 4Runner share the same drivetrain options as the new Tacoma? I think that's a pretty safe bet. Despite the outgoing trucks having 2 different engines, the 3.5 V6 and then the 4-liter V6 in the 4Runner, I think Toyota is going to, again, simplify things with both the styling and then also the parts that they're putting on these trucks. It's smart business to cut your costs and reuse the same stuff that works across your other products. I think they're not the only manufacturer that's doing that, and it seems to be in kind of this day and age with the cost of manufacturing and stuff, that seems to be kind of the direction that they're headed. So I would be shocked if the new 4Runner didn't have the 4-cylinder turbo or the 4-cylinder turbo hybrid out of the Tacoma. One thing I'm a little bit curious about though is, the 4Runner needs to come in a little bit under the price of the Land Cruiser, we think. And so is there a chance that there's going to be like a non-turbo 4-cylinder, but with the hybrid as sort of, again, the 4Runner is known for its reliability and its longevity. And these new, like highly strung turbocharged engines, we don't know that they're proven just yet. They're fairly new in the Tundra and the Sequoia and stuff like that. And so is Toyota going to play it safe and kind of do a 4-cylinder hybrid that would mimic like the original Prius or something that, people are freaking out about Toyota switching to hybrids? Well, they built one of the most reliable hybrid platforms with that first Prius that they sold in North America. That thing is rock solid. They're racking up hundreds of thousands of miles on those, and yeah, they don't perform. They're not fast. They're not exciting, but they keep with the Toyota theme of just going and going and going. So are they going to do something like that and create like a base model 4Runner maybe? I don't know. Will there be a TRD Pro version and a Trail Hunter version of the new 4Runner? Yeah, I think so. I don't think the Tacoma will be alone in that. I think that's going to be coming right across the whole lineup of trucks. I mean, how cool would it be to see a Trail Hunter version of a Sequoia or something with a big snorkel on it stuff right from the factory? That'd be awesome. So if Toyota felt the need to create those off-road specific versions of the Tacoma, then there's no reason why they wouldn't do it with the 4Runner as well. Now, a big question that a lot of people have, myself included, is how is this 4Runner going to fit in with the rest of the lineup of the Toyota trucks? I think the confusing part is this new Land Cruiser, because it used to be a much larger SUV that was more the same size as the Sequoia. And now they've dropped it down to be very similar to a 4Runner. So people are kind of questioning, previously we had the 4Runner, and then the luxury version of it was the Lexus GX. And those two were essentially the same vehicles for the last 2 generations. Basically, the Lexus was just the Starbucks version of the 4Runner. So how does this new Land Cruiser switch things up? I'm not sure. And I think Looking at the pricing of the Land Cruiser, yeah, it came down by a ton compared to the outgoing Land Cruiser, but it's still, I think, in the US it starts at like 52 or 55,000, something like that. I can't imagine that the 4Runner is going to be more expensive than that. So we can assume that the Land Cruiser is going to fit in the middle between the 4Runner and then the Lexus GX. So I think that means that the 4Runner is going to be kind of the entry-level off-road SUV in the Toyota lineup, hopefully. And again, that's what makes me think that maybe there's gonna be like a non-turbo version that gets the cost down like well into the 40s, and then that'll go up from there. And higher-end versions of the 4Runner are gonna kind of cross over with the Land Cruiser maybe. But another thing that I was thinking is that, this isn't the first time that we've seen something like this. Actually, in the early 2000s, we had the 4th generation 4Runner, and then we also had the FJ Cruiser, which was built on the same 120 series platform, but quite different styling. And, I think that still worked out for them for the most part. Yeah, they ended up canceling the FJ Cruiser because I'm not sure if it actually was confirmed to be taking away from 4Runner sales, but I think that's what everybody assumed was the reason why they stopped making it. But there was a good chunk of years where the two were available at the same time, and you either liked the Land Cruiser styling or you liked the 4Runner styling, but underneath the skin, they were essentially the same vehicle. One thing that was different back then, though, was the drivetrain. The FJ, you could get a manual transmission, and it had a locking rear differential, and the 4Runner didn't have that. And so is that going to be something that happens now with this new Land Cruiser and the new 4Runner? We do know that the new Land Cruiser is going to have a center diff lock and also a locking rear diff. Now, is the 4Runner only going to have a center diff lock? Is that going to be kind of similar to the 4th gen and the FJ Cruiser? And on that note, what about a manual transmission? There's a bunch of people online saying that, because the new Tacoma has a 6-speed manual, that guarantees that the 4Runner is also going to have it. I'm not so sure because, again, historically, the Tacoma has always had a manual transmission available, right? Right from the very beginning, right from the 90s, the Tacoma has always been available with a manual transmission. The 4Runner has not been the same story. The 3rd generation 4Runner, you can get a manual in it still. But after that, ever since, you couldn't get a manual in any 4Runner. Not the 4th gen, not the 5th gen, in any trim, model level, anything, you could not get a manual transmission. And during that entire time, you could get a Tacoma and a manual transmission. So I don't think it's quite as simple as the new Tacoma has a manual, so the 4Runner will too. I really hope that this new 4Runner has a manual transmission option because I think that's one of the things that made the previous generations of 4Runner so cool. And if they brought that back, that would be fantastic. And one final note that I agree with TRD John on, if there's no roll down rear window, we riot. I'm with you, brother. So I know there wasn't a lot of cold hard facts in this video, and that's because there just aren't really any out there yet, but I wanted to get this up there and show what other people are kind of saying and get us talking about what we think the new 4Runner is going to be like. Rest assured, this will not be the last video that I make about this upcoming Toyota 4Runner. I'm going to stay updated on it, and whenever I learn something new that I think is interesting, I'll create a new video for you guys, and we'll stay up to date on this unfolding story of what the 6th generation Toyota 4Runner is going to be like. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.